Hi-de-ho, this is Tony with the Jeep Talk Show, and just like you, I'm listening to the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast with Nikki G.
Episode 100. We did it. We finally did it. When I was a kid, I had a pet pig who I told all my hopes and dreams and secrets to. Yeah, I knew it was a big mistake. He was bound to squeal. Well, welcome to the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki G. I'm here to delight your ear holes with all things off-road for the next 10 minutes or so. Why 10 minutes? That's about how long it's going to take the Maytag repairman to get here. Now is the part of the podcast where I say all my legal boilerplate mumbo-jumbo, but I don't have to anymore because I have enslaved AI interns to do it for me. Take it away, AI's enslaved servants.
You're listening to the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast, the podcast for the off-roader with a short attention span.
You can follow the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, but never on TikTok. You can listen to the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast on whatever the hell you're listening to it on now, including Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, Odyssey, Podbay, Podchaser, Pocket Cast, iHeartRadio, and on YouTube.
Got something to say? We would love to hear from you. Just contact the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast at 10minuteoffroad@gmail.com. That's 10minuteoffroad@gmail.com. Or leave a comment on our YouTube channel.
All right, welcome to the show. This is a special show. It's the 100th episode. I had all kinds of hopes, dreams, and plans for this, for if I ever made it to 100 episodes. And here I am, and I have nothing prepared. I didn't even realize it was going to be the 100th episode until I was writing out some talking points. So I started this podcast almost 4 years ago, April 19th of 2000. 4 years have I been doing this, and I only did 100 episodes? That seems kind of lame. Well, in my defense, I only record this whenever the hell I want to. Sometimes it's twice a month. Sometimes it's once a month. Sometimes it's no times a month. It's just whenever I get the time. And this episode's coming out a week late because last week when I was getting ready to record it, I came down with the flu or something and got sick and throat was sore and I couldn't talk. And so the podcast had to be delayed until almost a week later when I got some time. So I'd like to thank everybody for listening to the podcast and making it the number 7th podcast about off-road in the tri-state area. Both of you listening to this, thank you very much. With that being said, moving on, I'd like to talk about Jeep shows. I'm not really a Jeep show guy, but I do like hanging out with friends, and some of my friends like to go to these things. Went to 2 different Jeep shows, one right after another. One week, I went to the Maggie Valley Jeep Fest, which is in western North Carolina, in the Maggie Valley. The wonderful town of Maggie Valley, which I don't like to go to because I got into some legal trouble a couple of years ago back there. Even though I paid my debt to society, I still kind of feel cheap and dirty when I go there. I'm always looking over my shoulder, just waiting to run into the sheriff we'll just say Nikki G don't like Maggie Valley too much. When I go there, it's in and out, inconspicuous. I try not to make direct eye contact with the law enforcement. And then a week later, I went to I think it was called Jeep Jam in Galax, Virginia. Two different styles, I guess, of Jeep meets. The Maggie Valley Jeep Fest, I went with friend Travis. We had a good time. Love hanging out with friends. The Jeep Jam in Galax, I went with a different set of friends. We went and camped out for the weekend, and where we were camping was just a few miles from the venue of where the Jeep Jam was. So we went down there to check it out, and I got to tell you, it was, well, we'll talk about Maggie Valley first, Maggie Valley Jeep Fest. I loved it. It wasn't the biggest Jeep festival I've been to, but it was bigger than I thought it would be. It was well organized. Quite a few vendors there. Jeep vendors, all kinds of vendors. And you get the oddball local vendors like State Farm Insurance and stuff like that. They had a couple of food trucks there for food. Alcohol, I don't know too much about if they had alcohol. But Maggie Valley Jeep Fest was right off the main road. If you've ever been to Maggie Valley, there's only one road in, one road out. Everything's on this main road because Maggie Valley is a valley nestled in between two mountain peaks. So there's really not much room. But the venue they had was pretty big. The parking was ample. I got primo parking right next to the gate. Took 2 minutes to walk to the gate. Waited in line about 15 minutes. Got in. It was $8 to get in. They took plastic or cash. So went in, but had a good time. Talked to a few people that I've met before. Travis showed up. We walked around, looked at everything. He bought a few things. I was going to say I almost bought a few things, but I did buy a thing. I found somebody selling a tailgate that fit my TJ. They had Show and Shine at Maggie Valley. You had the same heavy hitters that go to all the Jeep shows, and a few locals. And I gotta tell you, there was quite a few people there. I love looking at other people's builds. Some of them are just too gaudy. Just because it bolts onto a Jeep doesn't mean you should do it. But your Jeep, your problem. Spent a few hours in Maggie Valley. Had a great time. I was gonna spend the night out that way, but then I just decided I'll just drive home. I drove my big red XJ. It worked flawlessly there. Couldn't have been happier. Which I was kind of worried because I was getting a little bit of a transmission problem on the way to Sumter National Forest the week before that. And luckily I changed out my throttle position sensor, and that seemed to take care of it. Alright, so now let's switch gears to the Galax Jeep Jam. Galax is a town probably about as big as Maggie Valley, but it's laid out a little bit different because it's got a little bit more room. Galax, it's in Virginia. They were both about equal distance from my house. Maggie Valley might have been just a little bit further, but nothing to really sneeze about. So I drove up to Galax. A friend of a friend had some property with a creek running through it that we camped out in a field. Had a great time with some friends. We decided to, hey, Jeep Jam's going on. Let's go to Jeep Jam. So we all loaded up in our Jeeps and drove down there. And I gotta tell you, the one thing I did like about the Galax Jeep Jam is you pay the entrance fee and you parked right there in the venue. It was, they collected as you parked, so there was no waiting in line or anything. And even if you did wait in line, you wouldn't be waiting long because there was nobody there. It was $8 to get into Maggie Valley. It was $10 to get into the Galax Jeep Jam. Cash only, they didn't take cards. So you got in, you parked in a field right next to the venue, and pretty much you parked in the Jeep Jam. So your vehicle was part of it, whether you wanted it to be or not. The Show and Shine, not too many vehicles entered into Show and Shine because there was hardly anybody there. Vendors, I want to say there was like 5. You had a food truck, a beer truck, vendors selling jewelry, one selling homemade knives, t-shirt vendor. The only Jeep vendor was somebody selling like custom badges, like the badge of honor, trail badges. And then you had the hemp dispensary people were there. But that was it. I paid $10. I didn't even have to get out of my Jeep. I could have just looked around and saw everything. I was there maybe 20 minutes and saw everything twice. Nobody was there. It was very disappointing. And I think this was the second annual Galax Jeep Jam. And I think the Maggie Valley one was like in its 4th or 5th year. If I had to pick one, I would say the Maggie Valley one is the one to go to. The Galax one, I might go to it again just because there's a lot of things to see up that way. I haven't really explored too much that way. All right, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for listening to this and making it the number 7th most popular podcast about off-road stuff in the tri-state area. Which 3 states, I don't know. I'm imagining it's maybe Hawaii, Connecticut maybe, and Idaho. Which that's a fun word to say. Idaho. Who told you this was the number 7th most listened to podcast? Idaho. Alright, boys and girls, until next time, this is Nikki G saying wheel what you got and be happy.